Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Heidi Ferguson, and next to me is Fidesta Ramsey, and this is Fierce, Honest Hearts. We are excited to be with you this evening, and so another unexpected warm day. It was a little warmer than I had hoped it to be, and just noticing how I feel in that and how it affects me. And I'm in it. So, recently I'll do a check-in and I'm going to share an observation, which is recently I've noticed, I'm like, wow, this has been going on for a while, which is one of the things I've told myself is I'm changing the narrative of my family because of my awarenesses and because I'm doing it differently and working on doing it differently. And so, and asking to be heard in a different way. And I hope that's happening. I can't control anyone else and how they receive me. But I will say that, when we do feel heard by just one person, it makes a huge difference in how we show up and how we are present for them and ourselves. And I would say I'm present for myself most of the time, but this has been a shift in the way that I even do that. So that feels, really good. And I'm like, damn, Heidi, you're doing this, right? And so, and then the question that I've been asking is, okay, so as I show up as myself and I'm present as I can be, am I being understood by them in the way that I want to be understood? It's one thing to listen. It's one thing to hear the information, to take it in. And am I being understood? That's not a question that I can answer, right? Unless they give me feedback about what they've heard. So, I've kind of been, chewing on that a little bit recently. It's been good for me to have the observation and then to bring it to light and have conversations that I haven't had for my whole life with, those that I'm close to. And so I'm curious to hear from you because you shared something with me yesterday. And I was like, I was just curious, like after you shared that with me, I was like, oh, I wonder, because you made the choice to do something 2 days ago. I don't even know what day it is. It's Wednesday. I guess when we spoke yesterday, you had handled something on Monday very differently. And you had your coaching self show up in a situation that you normally wouldn't have. And so my question to you is, I'm just like, I wonder how she feels about this. So I wonder if by doing that, if you feel like that changes the narrative in your family, in your situation, in whatever, like wherever you brought your coaching self to, do you feel like that changed the narrative or maybe just changed the thought process of those whom you decided to be your coaching self with? Is that a question that makes sense?
I think I get the question. If I was to laser it, it would be, did I feel a shift in making that different choice?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first, I kind of want to loop for you for a minute because we've been on this, journey of listening to each other and teaching this. So first I heard you say it was a warmer day than you would like it to be. And I know that the heat is like the bane of your existence.
It is.
And that it affects you in ways that you shared that you just don't love, that you don't love being, I'm going to say perpetually like in the sun roasting season, right? So just like feeling a little tenderness there, being like, oh yeah, this is the horizon you were talking about, the months that it's coming earlier, right? Mm. And then there was something you were sharing that felt important to me to just name, because my face was making expressions of like, wow, that's brave. Some, sharing things you haven't shared your whole life. That felt big. It felt like a little meteor landed, like, wow, that's big, that's brave, that's courageous. That's what it feels like for me. Yeah. And just you wanting to know that people understand you. And almost the coolest part is like you taking responsibility for that. Taking responsibility for communicating in a way and checking in a way that you can feel understood. Right? Which is really cool. So thank you. Like that was like, there's too much juicy stuff in there just for me to switch to answering your question. Yeah, fertile soil. Right?
Yeah. Thank you for slowing that down. That was, I didn't realize, I wasn't aware of the impact of my output. So thank you for slowing that down, because sometimes my brain gets ahead of my mouth, et cetera, and I'm like, I just kind of go on. I'm like, and then what about you? Let's slow this train down a little bit. Yeah.
I love your relational self-awareness to go, oh, I could see how that might feel different for someone else.
Yeah.
And I've also been in your shoes where it's like, there's so much pouring out of me that's being looked at, that it is sort of a, oh, I emptied my basket. Now, how are you? Right? I've done that to you, I'm sure. So yeah, thank you, because I wanted to look at a few of those nuggets with a little more care, a little more understanding. It's like, this might be a cool place for you to be like, oh, if I leave room for someone to reflect back to me, like I get to slow it down and take it in and hopefully be seen a little, I think even like 2% more than.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you. What do I want to be seen? And I'm holding your question as well as part of the share. My first big thing that's alive for me is that I'm hearing this from multiple clients, and I'm also living it, which is when you're building your business, you can just be in this endless list of things that need to be done with kind of an endless fire in my heart that has the ability to and the tenacity to keep doing it. But then the body temple, the human animal, that's kind of like, can we go outside? It's so nice out. Can we take a walk? I know you could sit at your laptop for 6 more hours, but we need a walk. So for me, this morning, it's like, I knew I could just get right to emails and all the things, right? But there was a cool breeze coming off the water, and it was like lifting up my hair. And I was like, I want to go out there. And I actually had to fight with myself a little bit, right? The part that was like, oh, this is an hour and a half. You could just plow through some work at 9 a.m. And the other part's like, but this is going to fuel you through the whole day. And it's a counter instinctual move for me right now. So I'm doing it. I'm basking in it. It was so glorious to spend that time outside, and I just live in such a gorgeous place to be like, let me look at the lush trees, the water, the breeze, the sunshine, the marina boats, just all of it. So soothing to my nervous system, actually. That's why I live here. And the return on that, I'm just really grateful to myself that I did it anyway, even though there was another part that had another motive, right? Competing motivations. And then I did it again earlier today, before getting on our call, just being like, I want to water the garden. And, my feet got a little wet and put my hands in some soil. And it was like, this is why I chose to be an entrepreneur. So I could take naps when I want and work barefoot and plant a garden and take walks whenever I want. And yet I wasn't giving myself allowance. So it's something I'm working with this week and probably beyond. I think very obviously beyond this week, until it becomes my way of being, that I gift myself with those refueling stations, that feels big to me. It sounds so simple, but it feels really big, because if I can do that well and give myself that energy, it actually is better than just working, being like just the myth of being productive versus being alive. So hopefully that helps any of those busy entrepreneurs watching. And yeah, to your question, I think I am shifting some chronic roles in which I defer a little bit out of respect, out of habit, I guess, and had what felt like higher intelligence in me say, okay, like, time to rip here, time to actually bring your trained self to this. And interestingly, I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel hesitation. I felt like this needs to be done. I'd like to spend more time with that part of me too. It's like the voice of the heart before the mind starts. But what about this, right? And I think it's only an invitation, right? I mean, but coaching is always only an invitation. The real honest work is done by the person receiving it. And it continues to feel good to flex, how do I put it? To be so caught up with myself that I could flex that part and not think I'm like the past self that has to do it the old way, because that's my role and that's what people are used to. And it would rock the boat if I showed up in a new role, but it's like, you know what? I've grown, so I'm going to show up how I am. And then to have it be received, because that's not always a guarantee. Right? That's the biggest emotional risk we take, is to show it and then risk that someone might not receive it, or they might disconnect because of it, or they might actually just let it in because for whatever reason it was the right time. So yeah, thanks for tracking that. And yeah, thank you for checking in. I think it's an ongoing process at this moment.
I think it is. Yeah. Ongoing and never ending. Like never ending, which is really kind of cool.
I think so. I think we'd be bored to death if we just like happened to arrive at 40. What are we supposed to do?
No. That's how I would that's how I would feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. And as you were sharing that, what came up for me, I shared a little bit yesterday when we spoke.
Yeah.
I had a session with a friend over the weekend, and when I got the information, which the big piece of the information, which was trust her, trust yourself enough to know that you can trust this person in front of you, that the information that she needs is going to come through because she's done the work. You've been her mentor. She's got the information. You're here to guide. Okay. And I was like, wow, this is really what it is like. And this is what it really means to let go and to trust and to have an opportunity again to exercise that muscle, like do the biceps with that, woo, you know, because we don't know what we never know what the end result's going to be. As much as we tell ourselves, I'm controlling this, we're not in control. And so, yeah, you didn't know, you know, in your conversation how it was going to turn out or whatever. And it was actually a really beautiful thing, you know? So I would say, not only do I want more of that for myself in my life, but I also want to be the person who supports others like you to be in that space, to have that experience, to trust yourself, right? Like really, and it's a risk to trust yourself, know that there's a risk and be like, and I'm going to be okay. I don't know what the outcome is, but it's going to be all right. Like, it's not going to end the world. We know that for sure. Like that, I know it's not any decision I make, any decision you make is not going to end the world. So we are not responsible for that. But there really can be some gifts that come from it. And that is what I really want to fill. That's what I want to fill myself with. Yeah.
It's living, I hear it as fully alive versus half alive.
Completely.
And I personally, I had a coach ask me once when I started building my business, what are like 3 things you can't tolerate? Right. Of course, there's so much. There's like greed and capitalism and
yeah.
But like, she was like, but like, which ones really impact you? And I was like, living half alive instead of fully expressed in full technicolor, confetti and all, right? Whoever we are. And then this piece, because I think it's close to my heart, is as an empath, losing self-trust. And then the hero's journey of gaining it back and then being like, damn, like I'm powerful here. I was powerful then, right? And I'm powerful now, but like there's a journey to not feel like the sensitivity is a curse sometimes, or I don't even know where I'm going with this, but that place of your client being able to find her answers now because you've helped her, right? You've helped her learn how to tap into that truth. Yeah. It's like setting compasses.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, now your compass works.
Right. And
when you can go wherever you want to go. Your compass works.
Right. When it's working and you know where you can go. That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I find, because I serve empaths in particular, that just seems to be who finds me, that they're people whose compasses are set straight. They just don't trust their compass. Like, well, it says that's north, but I've had a lot of people tell me that's north.
Yeah.
Does that land for you? Like some of the work that empaths have to do?
Completely. And I will also say that, you know, I have been one of those people who hasn't followed my compass when it's so clear. Like when spirit drops down is like, this is what you need right now. And I completely ignore it because I'm afraid or it doesn't feel, whatever it is. And then, you know, 3 months, a year, 4 years later, all this time, and I'm in this mess, and I'm like, wow, had I listened the first time, paid attention and listened and done what I was being told to do, which was really clear, I wouldn't be where I am. But I've learned a lesson, and I'm gonna, you know, and I'm doing it differently. So yeah, and I think that what I've learned, not only from my own experience, but from the experience of people that I work with, my clients, is that is typically their biggest hang up, is not trusting themselves. Because like when I talk about spirit, I'm like, this is within all of us. So we are one. I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but for those who don't really understand, my belief is that we are one with spirit, so it's within us. And so when I talk about spirit, I'm talking about myself in a high, like, you know, a higher vibration, but still. And so, and that's the mistake that people make most of the time, is they're afraid and they don't trust themselves. And so they go on a different path. And then they're like, oh, what did I do? Well, let's regroup.
How to get here.
let's regroup. Let's get the compass back out and take a really good hard look at it. And then maybe ask yourself, why didn't I trust myself? Why did I choose to do that other thing? Because that's even more self-reflective. Yeah.
This is where, you know, I start to geek out on attachment science a little bit, because of belonging and expression and all those things that get mixed together. In the work at the relationship school, there's sort of like true north and there's strategic north, right? Which you can imagine. Yeah. Right? True north and magnetic north, like sort of the one that just starts to be part of social conditioning and, you know, oh, I'm celebrated when I get A+ or whatever. Like it could be, I'm good at sports, whatever, right? Something that could be honest self-praise, but done strategically to stay, I'm going to say, in the same spiritual house as others, right? And I see that as part of the hero's journey too, is going from that strategic north, like the how did we get here? Why were you following other people's compasses? You know, or are these really your values, or did these get handed down to you? Like, should we not check in with that? Yeah, right? Should we not give those a glance at least to see if they're really yours, or somebody handed them to you and maybe you hand them back, right? Energetically. Yeah. So they say in the gap between true north and strategic north is where most like addiction and depression are happening, in that valley. That totally makes sense. Yeah. I really get that. Yeah, I get that like viscerally, because I've been there where it's like I'm in that victim valley with the depression or the addiction, because I'm trying to do the corporate Hollywood film TV industry job, when really what I want to do is what I do now. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that, how does that land for you, that gap between? Because I've been there, and I've been in that wedge of depression, because it feels like a wedge. And the wedge feels very sharp, like as if I can't get out of it. It feels really deep, right? Like it's stuck. Yes. Like right in the corner. Yeah. And so when I envision myself, when I think back to when I was in these situations, it actually makes me feel sick to my stomach. And if we're thinking about ourselves as a full person with, from where we get our information, wherever that's coming from, and how it drops down into our bodies, if my stomach is feeling sick and nauseous and upset, that's a red flag. And I need to be paying attention to it, because it's not going to turn green. The flag's not going to turn green unless I get out of the situation. And my stomach is going to still be in knots until I make a different choice. So yeah, that, I could go on and on. I could go on and on about illness and how one gets in, just how stress and situations that are not good for us really affect us physically. And I think I've talked about it in the past on the podcast, but yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, I love you sharing that. It feels vulnerable to me. being able to name, like, been in that valley, been in that. So I like the wedge because that's much more it's like, yeah, there's no clawing up.
No.
That wedge place, right?
Right. And it feels really deep. Like when you're in here and you're like looking at the walls going, how am I going to get out of here? Yeah. How am I going to get out of here with my full self intact? You know, where I feel good about myself. It takes a lot of work and a lot of determination and a lot of climbing, if you will. Like that is a metaphor, but climbing out of
steep climbing.
It is steep climbing, yes.
And I think some serious faith and courage and discipline, because you're not going to see the results at first. You're still going to be in that damn wedge.
Right.
And you got to trust you've actually made progress.
Right.
While you're still like, that wedge is like 3 inches down there. Yeah. I'm not out in the sunshine yet, you know?
Right.
Yeah. This reminds me of, you know, Debbie Ford used to tell this great story. Maybe she came across it from someone else, but she talked about how when we were born, we were this castle full of all these rooms, right? We had access to our anger and our sadness and our joy and our playfulness, and just like the whole spectrum of our humanity, right? And slowly people said, don't be selfish, don't be loud, don't be sensitive, don't be so playful, you know, slow down, quiet down, whatever, like just whatever guardians think is like, you know, proper to do, I guess. And she said, and eventually we closed those doors. One by one, we close those doors. And then one day we wake up, often in midlife, thinking we're a 2-bedroom flat that needs some work, right? And that tends to be where people wake up or come to coaching or to a guide like you. It's like, something's not right. This doesn't feel good. You know, I'm in this limited reality. And then the work is being able to open and those doors and those windows and gather, maybe even reclaim things we disowned or put away for others. That's why I love shadow work as a continuum of that, because it does help heal that core split, you know.
It closes the gap a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I'll give you an example that's personal so it kind of can land. It's like growing up, I judged anger as a really bad thing. Right? I'm never going to be angry. Anger's bad. Anger's toxic. Anger's harmful. It's hurtful. And to some degree, I think that's true. So I put on, as it relates to shadow masks, the good girl, right? The good girl, the like always chipper, kind of the hippy dippy, happy place, right? And I didn't have access to my anger, right? And I had a mask on. So not a win-win, right? Yeah. And in places where I should have been angry and set boundaries, I couldn't access it because I had this whole judgment that I never wanted to be an angry person, right? And I remember working with Debbie, and she'd be like, do you think if there was ever a time you were, you know, in an alleyway and someone was giving you trouble, or, you know, somebody was robbing you out of $80,000 while you were fixing your home, or, you know, overcharged, like whatever, do you ever think anger might be useful? Might actually serve, might actually have your back? And I was like, yeah, I guess, right? There might be a point where you need to have anger rising to set a boundary, a healthy boundary, versus exhibiting angry behavior, right? But still being able to have it. And it changed my whole world, because when I disowned it, I couldn't even harness it for good, right? And I was stuck in this doormat, good girl thing, which also wasn't really great, right? And the middle was like 98% of the time, hopefully 99% of the time, hopefully more, I get to be the loving, warm creature that I want to be. And if someone steps, I'll give them 10 seconds to run. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to fuck around there.
Yeah.
I didn't have access to that part of me that could protect me because I disowned anger.
Right.
So that's just like an example.
Yeah.
Of how it could then sort of emotionally handcuff us into a caricature.
Right. Right.
Because have you ever met that chipper, happy, good girl and just been like, I'm just really annoyed with this whole, like, that's all they got. Where's the rest?
So before I answer that question,
yeah,
I have a follow-up question for you, which is, where did you learn that? Like before you shared the whole story, you started with saying that you made this decision that you weren't going to be angry, and you weren't like, were you not allowed to be angry? Like, where did you, I'm just curious where you learned that about that anger is a quote unquote, that's my doing, but quote unquote bad thing.
You know what my answer is?
No.
Where did I not learn that? Right. And I'll explain that. Like, as a woman, as a young girl, like the be polite, be agreeable message. Living in Virginia as a Southern person, right? Like we're just graceful. We let things slide. And,
right.
As an Afghan woman.
Okay.
You know, demure, agreeable, bring the tea.
Yeah.
Right. And gosh, even in kindergarten, if a kid got angry, they got put in timeout. Like, so I think for me, it's like, where did I not learn that anger was bad? And making that judgment, seeing how harmful other people's anger was for me. It was very black and white thinking, because that's what kids do.
Right.
Anger's bad. Clearly, everywhere I look, they're telling me anger's bad. And no one said, you've got a lot of fucking power in that anger.
Right.
Right? Which is also true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where did I not learn it? It just felt like it was everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being reinforced. You know, if you saw women in activism who were angry, oh, look at them, they're being so aggressive and, you know, yelling at megaphones, and they're just annoying and they're a nuisance. Like, it felt like,
wow, fascinating. So so yes, I have known people and don't trust them. I would never trust somebody who does not, who I haven't seen that side of them at least once in their life. Because if they're not showing that side of them, my question is, what else are they hiding? What else are they not showing of themselves?
that they're not trustworthy to you.
No, of course not. How could they be? Like, that is such a huge hell no. No. And it's not even that I wouldn't be friends with someone like that. I wouldn't want anything to, I wouldn't even know how to be around somebody like that.
Yeah.
Because that's not real. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, when I was in the height of my dating days, as I was looking at profiles, or if a guy would send me his picture or whatever, and if he wasn't smiling at all, no, because a smile lets you in a little bit. It's vulnerable. But if he's just kind of stoic, what? No. There's not, I can't connect with that.
Well, totally. It's not multifaceted, and clearly we are, right? I also think of, you know, looking back on those years while I was really trying to hold up this I didn't even know it, right? But it's like the mask of like trying not to be that. So you're trying to be all of this versus just being whatever's there. I only got the feedback, honestly, I'd say in the last few years, which has really shaped me because I've been a mentor at the relationship school. I've been a student there. I've been a coach in training, all the things. And so we're constantly given feedback on how we show up because we have teachers watching us coach people
right
every week, every other week, right? So, the feedback I get is, equivalent to, I see all this nurture and all this kindness and all this encouragement, but where's the rest? Where's the challenger? Where's the fierceness? Where's the calling bullshit, right?
Right.
Yeah, kind of like, where's the rest of you?
Yeah.
Which is freaking confronting.
It is. It is. And it's also really important.
Yeah. Yeah, because what came through is exactly what you just said, is people being like, I really, and I get these, because they're supposed to give feedback on us, and, it's anonymous feedback, but it would come through as like, she's really warm and she's really kind and she's really sweet, but like, I'd like more challenge. Or I'm not sure if she challenges me because maybe she's just so gentle about it, but it was something in the sense of like, everyone was like, I actually want more than just this.
Yeah.
This part.
Yeah.
Which is a huge invitation.
Yes.
You're like, wait, people want the part I'm hiding? All right.
Right.
Cool, less work for me, right? That's like trying to hold those rainbow beach balls underwater that are pop up anyway.
Right.
So it's a gift to be witnessed.
Yeah.
And have straight talk from people.
Witnessed as your full self.
Witnessed as this isn't all of it.
Right.
Which is also incredibly loving and supportive to say to someone. Like, I know there's more. This isn't all of it.
Yeah.
And I actually want to see it. It's welcome here.
Yeah. So I wanted to pivot a little bit.
Okay.
Something that I've been hearing a lot lately in just conversations and it actually kind of makes me cringe a little bit. So when I hear people say I'm not the sensitive type. I'm not sensitive. I want to say, you know what's coming. I want to call bullshit. And the reason I want to call bullshit is because at the end of the day, because we are all humans, we're all sensitive. We all have emotions. Not everyone's connecting to them, but we have the option to connect to them. Mm-hmm. And if you're not connecting to them, there's something deeper going on, probably. So, when I hear that in a conversation, or I just kind of hear that as, I don't cry often, I'm not sensitive, I'm just like, are you paying attention? Like, that's my question, is like, if this doesn't affect you, and tears don't have to appear, that's not what I'm talking about. But if this doesn't affect you emotionally, are you awake? Are you paying attention? Because I fear that so many of us are not paying attention in the way that we need to in order to be in relationship, to be relational, to be in a community, to have connection. I don't know that I need to say anything more about that, but that's really kind of been on my heart a lot. I'm like, what does it even mean when a person says, I'm not that emotional? That's like a foreign language to me. I don't understand, right? I don't even understand. I don't know what that is. I really.
Well, yeah, you know what I think would be more accurate is to say I don't feel open. Right? I don't feel like my heart's open. I don't feel like I'm open to my emotions. I don't feel like I'm open.
Yes, that is more true. Totally. That nails it. Yes.
Versus I'm not sensitive. It's like, well, if we were honest, there is sensitive human and highly sensitive human.
Right.
And as I said to you yesterday, there might be another echelon not yet discovered.
Right. Right.
But I just can't imagine there's any such thing. And we learned this from Sue Carter at that conference, you know, as a neurobiologist. She's like, if you're a mammal, and you're human, you are sensitive to social bonds and you are sensitive to your needs. And you can pretend you're not, but you'd only be robbing yourself.
Yeah.
So that I don't get. I mean, I do get because I've done it. So I don't want to say I don't get.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't do now.
Right.
That's why I'm just passionate about that work. It's like, trust your experience, name your needs, set your boundaries. Like, yes, it's braving. Yes, it's scary.
Confronting.
But, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Edge stretch and challenging. And what'd you call it? The big awkward? Was that the Brene term? The big awkward or something?
You're not talking about the vulnerability hangover, are you? Oh.
A little bit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's risking emotionally.
Oh, yeah.
So I get why people don't want to do it. And no risk, no reward.
No risk, no reward. No intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to live half alive and have mediocre relationships? That's like your choice. That's my tough love.
Yeah.
But if you want fierce intimacy, amazing growth opportunities, transformative relationships, and dare I say, like this fully expressed way of living, that is the entry fee.
Yeah.
That's your ticket. That's your ticket.
It's your ticket. It's your ticket. Yeah. Yeah. Which leads me to the fact that you and I, Fidesz and I are in talks of creating a program. Woot, woot. To be teaching this, all of this that we talked about, and so for those who do sign up, you will have lots of opportunity to practice what we're talking about here. We're not just going to give you the information and let you be. We're going to support you in actually putting it in practice and working on it, exercising that muscle that we're so good at, holding up our arms like this, woo, the biceps.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to do your push-ups somewhere.
Yeah.
Might as well do them in a safe container.
Yeah. And we'll, when we get closer to the time when we're going to start promoting this, we'll let you know. But we just kind of, I'm like, there are no coincidences. The fact that we talked about this today, I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, and we got to teach, very recently, and it hasn't left my mind because it feels so vital to, this is going to sound so dramatic, but I actually think it's true, to the well-being of humanity and the world.
Yes.
And like the actual planet and the animals, right?
Yes.
And we get relational.
Right. I mean, the tentacles, which I have talked about many times, the tentacles and the way that simply the energy that we receive when we are in these situations it's endless.
Yeah.
It is endless. We don't even know the impact that the tentacles that are reaching out constantly, continually reaching out. They're endless, which is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, so many people look at the world and are discouraged and want to know how they can change the world. And I can only speak for myself that the work I've done to be one less asshole on the planet, honestly, ripples out.
It does.
Every day.
It does.
Into
Yes.
all my relations and into their relations and like onward. So that's a big needle mover.
Yeah.
If we can get more empowered, aligned, and equipped. And, you know, this is my passion because I wish this was taught earlier in life. Like senior year, high school, first year, college could save people a lot of, you know what I mean? Like there's a part of me that's like, I wish I'd learned this earlier. So I want everyone to have this ASAP. Because I think it's that life-changing.
Yeah. I think it should start way earlier.
I think it can, right? Yeah. I'm kind of doing like last resort, last ditch effort.
Sure.
By the time you're a young adult. But yeah. I think little kids can get this pretty easily.
Oh, they're such sponges, as they say, and they really do. They understand in ways that we can't even put words to. They really get it.
I think they have more feelings online and less static in the way.
I know they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, friend.
Thank you, friend.
So yeah. I want to own, you texted me to have the and cards with me and they're in the other room.
Okay.
So I've been mulling this over for the last few minutes in the back of my head, like, oh yeah, I said I'd do that and I dropped the ball on that. So I actually have a question in mind, if you don't mind winging it.
Let's wing it.
I had one come to me and I'm trying to trust intuition. It's a little, it's not a new thing, but it's a new flex to like go with it.
Okay.
So this is the question that came to me. When have you felt messy and loved by me?
Messy and loved at the same time? Every time I mess up. Seriously, every time I mess up. Every single time. And so I'll elaborate a little bit. So, you know, when I think I don't remember what happened last week, but something happened last week, right? So I brought it to our conversation.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember I'm like, I don't even know what that was, but I was owning, I got crunchy. I noticed what was going on. I was just like, oh, this feels, oh, I hate how I feel and blah, blah, blah. And I'm owning it. And as I shared it with you, you know, you have the way you receive information, regardless of what the information is. But I would also say, especially when I'm like, you know, when I'm messy.
Yeah.
Which I would say is very comforting for me, because then I know, like, as you're listening and witnessing me in my mess and sharing my ownership of something, I feel really heard by you. And I feel completely held and cared for and loved and loved through all of it. And I'm like, yeah, this is good stuff. This is where the magic happens. I mean, there are so many metaphors we can use, but it's a really beautiful thing. And I don't know where I would be in my life without it. I really, really mean that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow. I'm just taking that in. That feels really special over here. Yeah. I'm honored, right? To even be trusted and let in the messy parts.
And I would say this is just, I just got this visual when I had stones and I was in bed and I was Zooming with you from my iPad. I mean, I was feeling really shitty. Oh, I was so sick. And it's interesting because I really don't think of, when I do things like that, I don't think of myself as allowing someone in. I'm just like, this is it. You know, I really don't think of it in that way, but I hear it when you say the words that you really felt let in. I am doing that. And that's important in a relationship. Like I get that.
Yeah.
That really lands with me. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Sometimes it might come easy for you, right? And you might not feel like it's a big deal. And sometimes I'm like, wow, I'm looking at that time in particular being like, I might hide out if I'm feeling that bad versus be seen.
Yeah.
So it hits that place of like, wow, you're letting me see you at a place that I might like still be vulnerable or have lower intimacy tolerance. Right. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So
we our own cards.
We're creating our own cards. We could. We could
like our own conversation starters like this.
We could have our own merch.
Friendship cards or just like question cards.
Yeah. Oh, I like it.
They could also be, well, I don't know if they could be party starters. You know, that's my kind of icebreaker, but I can see where that might not have a market at other parties.
Right.
Like that's my jam, but
right. It's my jam too, but it's not necessarily everyone's jam. So when was the last time that you felt messy and loved by me?
Well, I loved your answer. Just like every time I make a mistake, every time I think less mistakes like the tech or the, you know, those little moments feel like moments of grace. More when I miss you, when I drop you. Because that one's more important to me. I can totally be like, yeah, whatever. I didn't have breakout rooms set up or whatever. Like those I can let go. I care, but I don't care so much, right? But I think the moments like that particular one you brought up last week, where I am sort of bulldozing in efficiency mode and not tracking that you might be overwhelmed. Those are the places where I'm like, oh, fuck. I don't want anyone to feel like they're getting pushed or pressured, right? That I don't like that feeling myself. So I think your understanding and your like benefit of the doubt and goodwill, right? When I might have missed you, I might have been misattuned to you in a moment, and not with any malintent, right? But just like being a human with my own focus. Those are the places that matter the most to me. That there's not like resentment building or grudges building or I don't know, that you forgive and do it with such understanding, right? And with obviously commitment from me of like, hey, I'm going to track you better there. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But already some impact has been felt.
Right.
And that you're able to really, I think just let go or find your way to move through that impact so we can get back to that yummy place we like to be in together.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I feel loved in the way you care for our relationship, even when I miss you on occasion.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Taking a deep breath here. Yeah. as we come to the end of our hour.
I know.
I'm not going to say it, but I want to say it. How does that happen? You know,
there's sort of an eternal kind of timelessness when we're talking, and then it's like, oh yeah, I have to look at the clock and go, oh,
right.
That's it.
Right. We are recording, and we're sticking to an hour, and yeah, all the things. Thank you to those who joined us or are listening later. We appreciate your support. If you follow us on YouTube, please hit subscribe. It allows people to find us. And it'll also give you a notification when we do have a new podcast come out. So there we have it. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.